you are the Director of Fujitsiu Services Limited, is that correct?
Yes.
And the Executive Vice President and Chief Executive Officer of the Europe region?
Yes.
You joined Fujitsu, I think, in 2010, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much. If we could then bring onto screen your fifth statement, that's WITN 06650500. Thank you very much. And could we please look at page 6 of that statement? And it's paragraph 14 that I'd like to ask you about. You say at paragraph 14, Fujitsu accepts that there have been failures to meet the standards expected. Can you assist us with what specifically those failures are so far as Fujitsu is concerned?
So I think I cover a number of the topics inside the statement, but as I reflect on my previous evidence as well, the prosecutory support clauses in the contract meant that we put too much focus on the clauses in the contract rather than on the impacts on the sub-postmasters. I think there was a second topic for me, which is about the support of our employees when they flagged up concerns. And my third issue was around the whole industrialisation of witness statements, which I thought was and we think is completely inappropriate.
Page 27, paragraph 72, you've said that there is still substantial work to be done. Is it your view that the failings insofar as Fujitsu are concerned were substantial?
Well, the three examples I've just given you, I think they are substantial, and they resulted and they contributed to a miscarriage of justice on an enormous scale. So yes, I think they were substantive.
I won't be going into the detailed evidence. We won't be looking at the who, what, where, when, how. But it's important to understand Fujitsu's corporate position on what it accepts. I just want to see, in respect of three propositions. The first is, does Fujitsu accept that it provided a witness or witnesses in criminal proceedings who provided evidence that was, at a minimum, incomplete or otherwise should not have been relied upon?
So I'm not a lawyer, Mr. Blake. So my reading of the evidence and what was submitted, I think they were exactly as you just described.
Thank you. Second of all, does Fujitsu accept that it provided audit data, ARQ data, that was at certain points also unreliable?
Yes.
Third, does Fujitsu accept that there have been occasions in the context of enforcement action against sub-postmasters where information that was provided by Fujitsu was unreliable, inaccurate, or otherwise incomplete?
So I don't know about all the cases. I'm not familiar with all the cases and where witness statements were given. But I think there was a general theme, which was they were, and I seem to recall in evidence, witness statements being edited and being adjusted by post office lawyers. So I think there was a number of those areas where they were inaccurate, incomplete. Yes.
Thank you. Moving on then to the current position and the current operation of Horizon, could we please bring up onto screen the expert report from YouGov, that's EXPG 607, maybe 707. Thank you very much. Could we please turn to page 17? As you're aware, this YouGov report is based on responses from approaching 1,000 current sub-postmasters. Have you read this report?
Yes, I have.
Looking at page 17, we saw there that the net dissatisfaction in respect of how Horizon currently operates is a clear majority of those as between those dissatisfied and those satisfied. We have 49% net dissatisfied. If we could turn over the page, please. Thank you. It says there the vast majority, that's 92% of sub-postmasters surveyed, reported experiencing some form of issues with the Horizon IT system in the last 12 months. It gives an example, if we scroll down, of an open-ended comment. In my opinion, Horizon is still flawed. I regularly have unexplained discrepancies, often altering daily or manifesting at balance. If we scroll over the page, we have the list there at figure 8 of issues experienced within the last 12 months. Unexplained discrepancies, 57% of those who responded said that they had experienced unexplained discrepancies with Horizon in the past 12 months. We have their unexplained transactions, 19%, missing transactions, 14%, double entry of transactions, 10%. Do you have any reason to doubt those figures or experiences of the sub-postmasters?
So when I look at this report, and I had my team try and decode it, my concern is the term Horizon has been used to cover everything inside the post office's complete supply chain. So if you're a sub-postmaster, this is exactly the view you would get, because you will look on your screen and these are some of the problems or discrepancies or issues that they are experiencing. So it is absolutely correct from their experience. But screen freezes could be caused by multiple things. The post office has its network provided by a third party. Issues with pin pads have nothing to do with the Horizon system. They are provided for and maintained by another organisation. And when I listened to Melanie Park's, I think, evidence around discrepancies and innocent, actually, in some cases, innocent double keying or whatever, all of that told me that these things need to be properly investigated, not to rely on a very narrow definition of Horizon or a very narrow definition of where a problem would be.
The system that is provided by Fujitsu could be, at least in some part, to explain for those unexplained discrepancies, unexplained transactions, missing transactions.
So Fujitsu has been clear all the way along. There continues to be bugs, errors and defects. There continues to be end of life. This application, the Horizon application, as I think was covered in the witness statements earlier today, is end of life. It was meant to be end of life some years ago, and a new system was meant to be in play. So all of those things are correct, and could be or could not be causing those problems, which again is why I made the point a moment ago. Any accusation to a sub-postmaster needs to be properly investigated and not rely on one data point.
Perhaps we can see your reflections in respect of the end-of-life situation. Could we please turn to FUJ 00243299, please? It's correspondence that the inquiry has seen from the 15th of December of 2023 to Mr. Brocklesby, and it relates to the extension of the contract. I'll just read to you a few passages. At paragraph 1 there, if we scroll down, it says, the risks associated with the continued provision of the Horizon system, including the audit archive on an end-of-life IT infrastructure. Understandably, Post Office has historically been strategically focused on alternative solutions to Horizon rather than investing in the existing infrastructure. Due to the age and consequent end-of-life status of the underpinning Horizon infrastructure, there is an increasing risk of failure of the infrastructure that could result in adverse impact in the delivery of services to the public. Is that one of the points that you were just making, that as time goes on, the end-of-life status means that there is an increasing risk of failure?
There is an enormous increasing risk. The Post Office have rightly been focused on their other suppliers and building their new system, and Horizon application was meant to have been retired. So they put their efforts and focus, understandably, into the new world and not into the old world. To give this some context, we have not turned off some of this equipment because it is so old.
Another challenge to the feasibility and continued delivery of the Horizon system, number 2, is the technical complexity and risk associated with updating infrastructure at various states of obsolescence and compatibility, and to delivering new system requirements, including because of lessons learned and commitments to end users. These activities are increasingly risky and technically challenging, given the end of service life Horizon system noted in paragraph 1. So those are the challenges in respect to making changes to the Horizon system going forward.
Yes, And as I mentioned a moment ago, the Horizon application is one of many applications which are all interconnected inside the post office's supply chain. When you change one part, you need to make sure that it connects with Credence, with Polsat, with all the other systems that the post office uses directly and with other third parties. When something is this old and you make that change, it has consequential impacts on all of those other systems, which you need to be super careful about.
We're going to look at some of the correspondence between yourself and the post office, Mr. Reed, in due course, but could we just quickly go through a few of those letters, a few lines in a few of those letters? If we start with FUJ 00243-204, it's a letter that we've already seen in great depth of the 8th of July 2024 between yourself and Nick Reed. As I said, we'll come to the context of these letters. But if we scroll down, there's only one passage that I'd like to draw your attention to. It says there, as the post office is well aware, there have been and there continue to be bugs, errors and defects in the Horizon system. Further, Fujitsu currently has and previously had access to branch transaction records. 2 points you're highlighting there. One is bugs, errors and defects. The other is what has come to be known as remote access. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could we please then turn to FUJ 00243303, a further letter of the 23rd of August. This one is to an investigator at the City of London Police. If we could scroll down the first page, please. Under A, it says, as discussed, the Horizon system has had and continues to have bugs, errors and defects, some of which may not have been detected at this time. So not only an acceptance that the current system has bugs, errors and defects, but also there are effectively unknowns.
Yes, but I think the second sentence is also important, which is the Horizon application is fed from other third-party systems and business processes. So as well as Horizon may well have unknown, I cannot attest to the validity or the performance of those other systems.
Thank you very much. That letter can come down and we'll return to it shortly. Are we to understand from that correspondence and from your evidence that there are currently reliability issues with the Horizon system?
So the Horizon system, as far as I understand today, is performing to its contractual performance levels in terms of its SLAs. Last week I got an update on where we are with bugs, errors and defects. There are currently 16 and we have patches, which is the technical term for the fixes, cited to go in February after the Christmas peak. So I think there is good understanding of where there are bugs, errors and defects and a process which is well communicated with the post office. There is a weekly session with the post office and we're told they communicate that to the subpostmasters. But there will continue to be, Mr. Blake, with changes and with age, bugs, errors and defects that may well arise.
Does the system that Fujitsu provides operate in a way, and I'm going to use the language of a letter from Ernst & Young that we saw in phase 2 of this inquiry. It's a 1999 letter. Does it operate in a way that would allow subpostmasters to produce their accounts to a suitable degree of integrity?
I couldn't answer that question.
Do you consider it to be sufficiently reliable for subpostmasters to produce their accounts?
So, Mr. Blake, you're asking me to comment on audit and accounting processes which I don't have any professional understanding on. What I can say is that the system today performs to the SLAs that the Post Office requires to do, to perform to. I can't comment on whether that document that's produced at the back and what's its contents or whether it's appropriate for them to legally sign off. That would be massively overstepping my capability.
The Horizon...
Sorry, Mr. Patterson, I've forgotten what SLA stands for.
Oh, forgive me, service level agreements.
Sorry, yeah, right.
Subpostmasters up and down the country use a system that is, the fundamentals are provided by Fujitsu. Does that system, as you are as far as you are aware, is it sufficient to produce reliable accounts?
So, so I think in all the evidence that we've seen and all the inquiry we've seen, the reporting that comes out of Horizon, whether it's appropriate or not, may have bugs, errors and defects, may have been fed bugs, errors and defects, may not be reflecting the accuracy of what's gone on in the sub-postmasters branch. What is the document that's required by the post office, signed off by the sub-postmaster? I have no idea.
Not the post office. I mean, the taxman, for example.
I have no idea, Mr. Blake. I've never seen one of those documents about what would be presented to an accountant or to the HMRC. I don't believe it's in my evidence.
Are you confident, for example, that somebody could come to the inquiry from Horizon, from Fujitsu, and say, where you're sitting, that as somebody who operates Horizon, and of course individual cases have to be taken on their own basis and their own facts, but as somebody who operates Horizon, the system, so far as they are concerned, is reliable for accounting purposes?
Mr. Blake, I'm going to answer it. I don't know. If that question was being posed, I would expect the post office to be sitting here as well as the engineers on our side, to determine whether the information required is appropriate to be able to sign those things off. It's very clear. It's very clear. Forgive me. It's very clear in all the evidence in this inquiry that there is a level of unreliability. I've said it at the start of this particular evidence around bugs, errors and defects, and the whole end-to-end. Horizon in some respects represents the end-to-end of what goes on inside a sub-postmaster's branch and what happens in post office, head office. So for me to sit here and say I think there's enough in that documentation to allow HMRC or an accountant to sign off, I am not qualified to answer that, and neither are my colleagues.
Mr. Patterson, you are presumably somebody who goes up and down the country bidding for contracts. If you were selling Horizon as a new system, would you be able to tell the person who you are selling that system to that at the end of the day, the accounts that it produces are reliable?
So we do not sell this system. This system is end of life. At the Public Accounts Committee, when I gave evidence, this is not a product that we've ever sold to another customer. It is bespoke to the post office, and it's bespoke to the post office's requirements. So again, I would ask that would be a question I would be asking the post office: is the documentation and the material that comes out of it reflecting of what is required?
Can you see how that is an issue if you're a current sub-postmaster who operates that system, who produces accounts, who relies on the system day in, day out, that the head of the company in Europe who produces that system can't say that what's coming out of it is reliable?
So I'll give you a slightly different example. If in a cash pouch a sub-postmaster inadvertently puts in 2 extra zeros, and that cash pouch gets to the other end of the line and it doesn't have those 2 extra zeros of money, that's a discrepancy. Horizon has just reported what was keyed in on one end and what was counted at the other end. So forgive me, do I then say that the Horizon system is accurate? Well, in that example, I can't say that because I don't know what's going on.
Are we again repeating the words user error?
No, far from it. I use that as an example. Please forgive me, Mr. Blake. Please forgive me. I am very respectful for the sub-postmasters and what they've gone through.
So all I'm asking about is not the individual user making an error. Mm-hmm. I'm purely asking about the system that you provide.
Well, I'll take it away from being a user. Does the PulseApp system feed into the Horizon system correctly? I don't know the answer to that.
That's a third-party system.
But Horizon reflects all of that, and that's the transactions, in fairness to the sub-postmaster, that he or she are representing. So which is why we've been consistent since the very start of the inquiry that there have been bugs, errors and defects. There will continue to be unreliability in the front end, and in the rest of the supply chain, I do not know the answer to that. Which is why, when we get to the next set of questions, we've been so keen to make sure that investigations take in the entire system and don't rely on a very narrow point of view